The holographic display shimmered to life in the cramped observation deck of the research vessel Scientific Endeavor, casting an eerie blue glow across the assembled xenobiologists. Dr. Kethmer of the Altarian Institute adjusted his sensory apparatus, his four eyes focusing intently on the three-dimensional image that materialized before them. "Specimen designation, Umbral Hunter," he announced in his melodic voice, the words carrying harmonics that spoke of deep reverence and primal fear. "Classification, Apex Predator, Intelligence Level 7, Threat Assessment, Absolute." The creature that rotated slowly in the hologram was magnificent in its terrifying perfection. Standing nearly 3 meters tall at the shoulder, the Umbral Hunter resembled a fusion of the galaxy's most efficient killers. Its sleek, elongated body was covered in adaptive scales that shifted color and texture to match any environment. 6 powerful limbs ended in retractable claws that could shear through military-grade armor. But it was the head that truly inspired terror, an elongated skull housing a brain capable of complex strategic thinking, with sensory organs that could track prey across star systems. "The Umbral Hunters," Dr. Kethmer continued, his voice dropping to a whisper, "represent the ultimate evolutionary achievement in predatory design. In the 3,000 years since first contact, no species has successfully defended against a hunting pack. They are intelligence, instinct, and inevitability given form." Dr. Elena Vasquez shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her human sensibilities struggling with the clinical description of what could only be called death incarnate. At 35, she had spent her career studying the galaxy's most dangerous fauna. But even her extensive experience couldn't fully prepare her for the reality of the Umbral Hunters. Their hunting methodology, Dr. Kethmer explained as the hologram shifted to show behavioral patterns, begins with extensive reconnaissance. They study their prey for days or weeks, learning individual behavioral patterns, identifying weaknesses, and mapping escape routes. The psychological phase follows. They allow their presence to be known, inducing terror and irrational behavior in their targets. The display showed examples from across the galaxy. Entire research stations abandoned when hunter presence was detected. Colonies evacuated at the first sign of their distinctive claw marks. Military patrols found weeks later as perfectly arranged. Skeletal remains. The kill phase is swift and inevitably successful, Dr. Kethmer concluded. In recorded galactic history, there has never been a case of prey escaping an active Umbral hunter pack. They are the galaxy's perfect predators. Elena felt a chill run down her spine, not just from the description but from the knowledge that her 8-year-old daughter, Maya, was currently exploring the research station where they would be studying these very creatures. The Kepler 442b outpost had been established specifically to observe Umbral hunter behavior in their natural habitat, using advanced shielding and concealment technology to avoid detection. Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Kethmer addressed her directly, his large eyes reflecting concern. "I must emphasize the importance of maintaining absolute containment protocols. Humans are relatively new to galactic fauna interaction. Your species lacks the evolved fear responses that keep other beings safe." "I understand the precautions," Elena replied, though she couldn't shake the feeling that no amount of precaution would matter if these creatures decided they were prey. "Maya knows to stay within the station's protected areas." "Maya is your offspring?" Dr. Kethmer's voice carried a note of alarm. Dr. Vasquez, bringing a juvenile to an Umbral hunter observation. "Sight is unprecedented. Children lack the cognitive development to understand existential threats." "Maya is safer with me than anywhere else," Elena said firmly. "And this research opportunity is too important to pass up. Besides, our shielding technology has been tested extensively." Dr. Kethmer's sensory apparatus flickered with what Elena had learned to recognize as the Altarian equivalent of deep concern. Dr. Vasquez, with all respect to human technological achievement, the Umbral Hunters have never encountered shielding they couldn't eventually circumvent. They are evolution's answer to every defense mechanism ever developed. As if summoned by their conversation, Maya Vasquez bounded into the observation deck with the unlimited energy that only 8-year-old humans seem to possess. Her dark hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and her clothes bore the inevitable stains that marked a child who explored first and worried about consequences later. "Mom," she announced cheerfully, "Dr. Zixtal showed me the coolest bugs. They change color when you watch them, and they taste things with their feet." And she stopped mid-sentence as she noticed the holographic display. "Wow, what's that?" Elena quickly moved to block Maya's view of the Umbral Hunter, but her daughter was already studying the creature with the fearless curiosity that made human children both endearing and terrifying to other species. "It looks like a really big cat," Maya observed with the matter-of-fact tone children used for everything from discussing the weather to contemplating the fundamental nature of existence. "Does it purr?" Dr. Kethmer's sensory apparatus went completely still, a sure sign of profound shock. "Dr. Vasquez," he said carefully, "did your offspring just refer to the galaxy's most feared predator as ... animal?" "Maya, sweetie," Helena said gently, "this isn't like the cats back on Earth. This is a very dangerous animal that we're studying from far away." "But look at its eyes," Maya insisted, pointing at the hologram. "They're really smart. I bet it gets lonely being so scary that everyone runs away." The observation deck fell silent. Dr. Kethmer's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a reflexive response to concepts his species couldn't process. The idea that anyone, much less a human child, could look at an Umbral Hunter and see loneliness rather than death was so alien to galactic thinking that it might as well have been magic. "Maya," Elena said carefully, "why don't you go help Doctor Zixtal with the insect catalog? Mom has work to finish here." "Okay," Maya agreed cheerfully, then turned back to the hologram. "Bye, big kitty. Maybe I'll see you later." As Maya skipped out of the observation deck, Dr. Kethmer slowly turned to Elena. "Dr. Vasquez," he said in a voice that carried 3,000 years of evolutionary wisdom, "I fear your offspring may be the most dangerous being on this research station." Elena laughed nervously. "She's just a child." "She doesn't understand." "Precisely," Dr. Kethmer interrupted. "She doesn't understand fear. And fear is the only thing that has kept galactic civilization safe from the Umbral Hunters." The research station on Kepler 442b represented the pinnacle of galactic scientific achievement. Built into the canopy of the planet's vast forest, it used adaptive camouflage and psionic dampeners to remain invisible to the native fauna. The facility could house 50 researchers in complete comfort, while maintaining absolute concealment from even the most sophisticated predators. At least, that was the theory. Elena stood in the main laboratory 3 days later, reviewing the latest sensor data with growing unease. The readings showed normal forest activity, the expected patterns of herbivore movement, predator hunting cycles, and the natural rhythms of an undisturbed ecosystem. But something felt wrong. Dr. Vasquez called Dr. Thane Corvus, the station's Valdorian security chief. "We're detecting unusual animal behavior in Sector 7. The herbivore populations have vacated the area entirely." Elena felt her stomach drop. Empty forests meant only one thing in Umbral Hunter territory. "How long since the last sighting?" 47 hours and counting," Dr. Corvus replied, his metallic features reflecting the laboratory's soft lighting. "But Dr. Vasquez, there's something else. We're picking up acoustic signatures that match Umbral Hunter vocalizations, but the pattern is ... wrong." "Wrong how?" They're not hunting calls. Our translation algorithms suggest they're social communications, as if they're discussing something rather than stalking prey. Elena's unease deepened. Show me the audio analysis. The holographic display shifted to show sound wave patterns captured by the station's long-range sensors. The deep harmonic calls of the umbral hunters were indeed unlike anything in the xenobiological databases. Instead of the focused predatory communications associated with hunting, these were complex exchanges that suggested high-level cognitive activity. They're studying us, Elena realized. They know we're here. That's impossible, Dr. Corvus protested. Our concealment technology is specifically designed to counter their sensory capabilities. They can't detect us unless... An alarm began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the laboratory in red as automated systems initiated threat protocols. Over the intercom, Dr. Kethmer's voice carried a note of barely controlled panic. All personnel to secure areas immediately. We have confirmed visual contact with an umbral hunter pack. 3 adults approaching from the northwest. This is not a drill. Elena's training kicked in even as her maternal instinct screamed. Maya. She whispered, then louder. Where's Maya? She was in the botanical section with Dr. Zixtal, Dr. Corvus replied, already moving toward the emergency stations. The automatic lockdown will have sealed that area. But as Elena pulled up the station's internal monitoring system, her blood turned to ice. The botanical section showed clear signs of Maya's presence. Overturned plant samples, a half-finished drawing of alien flowers, but no sign of Maya herself. She's not there, Elena said, her voice tight with fear. Maya's not in the botanical section. The emergency channel crackled to life. Dr. Vasquez, came Dr. Zixtal's buzzing voice. Your offspring requested permission to collect samples from the observation platform. I authorized a brief supervised excursion, but when I went to retrieve her, she was gone. Elena's world tilted. The observation platform was outside the station's protective barriers, part of a camouflage structure that extended into the forest canopy. If Maya was out there, she was completely exposed to whatever was approaching. How long? Elena demanded. Perhaps 20 minutes. I initiated search protocols immediately, but with the lockdown, Elena was already moving, grabbing emergency gear and heading for the station's concealed exits. Behind her, Dr. Corvus called out in alarm. Dr. Vasquez, you can't go out there. The umbral hunters are actively hunting. You'll be walking into a death trap. My daughter is out there, Elena replied, her voice carrying the absolute determination that only parents understood. I'm going to find her. Then you'll die, Dr. Corvus said bluntly. And when they follow your trail back to the station, we'll all die. Elena paused at the airlock, her hand on the emergency release. Dr. Corvus, do you have children? No, but then you don't understand. I'm going to find Maya. You can either help me or stay out of my way. The airlock hissed open, and Elena stepped into the alien forest that surrounded the research station. The canopy above filtered the sunlight into a green-gold twilight, while the air carried the scents of 1,000 different plant species. Under normal circumstances, it would have been beautiful. Now it felt like walking into a predator's waiting jaws. Elena activated her tracking scanner, searching for any sign of Maya's biosignature. The device showed faint traces leading away from the observation platform deeper into the forest. Maya's trail was erratic, meandering like a child who had been distracted by interesting discoveries, rather than running in panic. That was either very good or very bad news. The forest around Elena seemed to hold its breath as she followed the trail. The normal sounds of wildlife had ceased, replaced by an ominous quiet that spoke of predators moving through their domain. Every shadow could hide death. Every rustle of leaves could herald the end. Elena had gone, perhaps, a kilometer when she heard it, a sound that stopped her heart. Maya's laughter, clear and delighted, carrying through the forest like a bell, was the unmistakable sound of her 8-year-old daughter having a wonderful time. Elena followed the sound, moving as quietly as her human reflexes allowed, until she reached the edge of a small clearing. What she saw there challenged everything she thought she knew about the universe. Maya sat in the center of the clearing, cross-legged on the soft forest floor, while the 3 largest umbral hunters Elena had ever seen lounged around her like oversized cats. The massive predators, each capable of killing a dozen trained soldiers, were watching Maya with what could only be described as fascination as she showed them her collection of interesting rocks. "This one's really smooth," Maya was explaining. To the alpha hunter, a magnificent specimen whose adaptive scales shimmered with deep purple and silver. "I found it by the water, and look how it feels when you touch it." The alpha hunter, this perfect killing machine that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, carefully extended one massive claw and gently touched the rock Maya held out. Its enormous head tilted in what Elena recognized as curiosity. "See? It's warm from the sun, but smooth like glass. I bet it would skip really good on water." Maya looked up at the towering predator with complete trust. "Do you guys like to skip rocks?" Elena stood frozen at the edge of the clearing, her mind struggling to process what she was witnessing. These were umbral hunters, creatures that had never shown mercy, never displayed curiosity about anything except the most efficient way to kill their prey. Yet here they were, apparently enchanted by an 8-year-old girl and her rock collection. The alpha hunter made a sound that Elena's translation software couldn't categorize, a deep, harmonic rumble that seemed to carry emotional content, far beyond the analytical framework of galactic xenobiology. Maya giggled in response. "I like your voice too," she said. "It's like singing, but deeper. My mom sings to me sometimes, but not as pretty as you do." Elena felt tears streaming down her face as the impossible scene continued to unfold. Maya, completely oblivious to the fact that she was surrounded by Death Incarnate, was chatting with the umbral hunters as if they were friendly neighborhood pets. And they, these perfect predators who had never shown anything but killing instinct, were listening to every word with rapt attention. One of the other hunters, slightly smaller than the alpha, moved closer to Maya. Elena tensed, ready to scream a warning, but the creature simply lowered its massive head and gently nuzzled Maya's shoulder. Maya reached up and scratched behind what might have been ears. "You're really soft," she told the hunter. "I thought you'd be all hard and scary, but you're soft like my stuffed animals back home." Elena realized she was watching something unprecedented in galactic history. Somehow, her fearless, innocent daughter had done what entire civilizations couldn't do. She had made friends with the galaxy's most dangerous predators. The alpha hunter suddenly raised its head, sensory organs focusing on something beyond Elena's perception. A low warning sound rumbled through the clearing, and Maya looked up with concern. "What's wrong?" she asked. Elena's blood froze as she heard the distant sound of aircraft engines. Through her earpiece, Dr. Corvus's voice crackled with urgency. "Dr. Vasquez, we have incoming ships. Unidentified vessels, heavily armed. They're jamming our communications and moving to surround the station. Poachers." Elena realized with growing horror that their secret research station had been discovered by the illegal hunters who captured exotic species for the black market. Umbral hunters would be the ultimate prize, worth more than entire planets to the right buyers. And Maya was sitting in the middle of it all. The umbral hunters had gone rigid with alertness, their predatory instincts fully activated. But instead of disappearing into the forest as Elena expected, they moved to form a protective circle around Maya, their massive forms creating an impenetrable barrier between the child and any potential threat. Maya looked up at the Alpha Hunter with complete trust. "Are the bad people coming?" Elena wasn't sure how Maya knew about bad people, but the 8-year-old's instincts seemed as sharp as the predators surrounding her. The Alpha Hunter's response was a sound Elena had never heard before, a complex harmony that seemed to carry reassurance, determination, and promise. Maya nodded as if she understood perfectly. "Okay," she said, "I'll stay here with you guys. But my mom's out there somewhere, and she might be scared." The Alpha Hunter's sensory organs turned toward Elena's hiding place, and she realized she had been detected from the moment she entered the clearing. Those massive, intelligent eyes focused on her with what looked like amusement. "Mom," Maya called cheerfully, "you can come out now. They know you're there, and they're really nice." Elena stepped into the clearing on legs that felt like water, her eyes never leaving the massive predators that surrounded her daughter. Up close, the Umbral Hunters were even more magnificent and terrifying than the Hollis had suggested. Each one was a perfect fusion of intelligence and lethality, designed by evolution to be the ultimate apex predator, and they were treating her daughter like a beloved pack member. "Maya," Elena said carefully, "we need to get back to the station. There are bad people coming, and—" "I know," Maya interrupted. "They told me." She gestured toward the hunters as if this was the most natural thing in the world. "They said, they'll keep us safe, but we need to be really quiet and do what they say." Elena stared at her daughter. "They told you?" "Not with words," Maya explained patiently, "with feelings. Like when you know I'm sad even when I don't say so, but bigger. They're really good at feeling things." The sound of approaching aircraft was getting louder. Elena could see flashes of metal through the canopy as the poacher ships began landing near the research station. Soon, armed hunters would be swarming through the forest, using advanced sensors to track any valuable specimens. The Alpha Hunter rose to its full, imposing height and made a series of complex sounds to its packmates. Elena's translation software caught fragments, tactical positions, defensive strategies, protection protocols. These weren't just predators. They were soldiers, and they were planning to defend Maya. "They want us to go to the big trees," Maya announced, pointing toward a grove of massive ancient trees whose trunks were wide enough to house entire families. "They say it's safer there, and they can watch all around us." Elena found herself following her 8-year-old daughter and 3 apex predators through an alien forest, trusting creatures that could kill her without effort to keep them safe from human poachers. The irony wasn't lost on her. The ancient trees Maya had indicated were indeed impressive, massive specimens that rose hundreds of meters into the sky, their trunks hollow enough to provide natural shelters. The Umbral Hunters guided them to one particularly large tree, its interior spacious enough for a dozen people. "This is like a fort," Maya said delightedly as they settled into the natural hollow. "We used to build forts in the woods back home, but nothing this big." Elena pulled Maya close, feeling the child's warmth and steady heartbeat against her chest. Around them, the 3 Umbral Hunters arranged themselves in defensive positions, their adaptive camouflage blending seamlessly with the tree bark until they were nearly invisible. "Maya," Elena whispered, "how did you know they were friendly?" "Everyone in the galaxy is afraid of these creatures." Maya looked up at her with the serious expression that occasionally crossed her young face. "They're not mean, Mom. They're just lonely. Everyone runs away before they can make friends, so they don't know how to be nice. But I didn't run away, so they learned." Elena felt her heart breaking and swelling simultaneously. Her daughter's simple, childlike wisdom had accomplished what centuries of galactic diplomacy couldn't. She had looked at the universe's most feared Predators and seen not monsters, but lonely beings in need of friendship. The sound of footsteps and harsh voices filtered through the forest as the poachers began their sweep. Elena could hear them communicating in the crude patois of the galactic underworld, their voices carrying the casual cruelty of beings who saw other life forms as nothing but commodities. "Scan shows 3 adults, prime specimens," came a gruff voice from nearby. "Track them down and use the sonic disruptors. We want them alive but manageable." Elena felt the umbral hunters around them go completely still, their predatory instincts fully engaged. But Maya reached out and gently touched the alpha hunter's massive claw, her small hand looking impossibly tiny against the creature's lethal appendage. "Don't hurt them unless you have to," she whispered. "They're just scared and doing wrong things. Maybe we can teach them better." The alpha hunter's response was a sound so soft Elena almost missed it, a gentle rumble that seemed to convey understanding and reluctant agreement. Even apex predators, it seemed, could be influenced by an 8-year-old's moral compass. The poachers passed by their hiding place several times, their scanning equipment unable to penetrate the umbral hunter's natural camouflage abilities. Elena held her breath each time, but Maya seemed completely calm, occasionally whispering quiet reassurances to their protectors. As night fell, the poachers' search became more aggressive. Elena could hear them setting up equipment, using advanced sensors and sonic generators to flesh out their prey. The sound of the sonic disruptors was designed to disorient the hunters' sensitive audio receptors, forcing them to reveal their positions. But the hunters didn't flee. Instead, they drew closer to Maya and Elena, their massive forms creating an impenetrable barrier against any threat. Elena realized that something fundamental had changed in their behavioral patterns. These perfect predators who had spent millions of years perfecting the art of survival were now willing to risk everything to protect a human child they had known for less than a day. "We're getting energy readings from the big tree cluster," came a voice from one of the poachers. "Deploy the extraction team. If they're holed up in there, we'll smoke them out." Elena felt panic rising in her chest, but Maya squeezed her hand. Reassuringly, "It's okay, Mom," the 8-year-old whispered. "They have a plan." As if responding to some silent signal, the alpha hunter moved to the entrance of their hollow sanctuary. Elena watched in amazement as the massive creatures' camouflage shifted from tree bark patterns to something that hurt her eyes to look at directly, a visual distortion that seemed to bend light around it. The 2 other hunters melted into the forest with liquid grace, becoming one with the shadows and undergrowth. Elena understood that they were witnessing a hunting strategy that had been perfected over millions of years. But this time it was being used to protect rather than kill. The poachers approached the tree cluster with military precision, their equipment scanning for any sign of the valuable umbral hunters. What they found instead was something their technology couldn't explain: sensor ghosts, energy readings that appeared and disappeared, and the growing certainty that they were no longer the hunters. "Something's wrong," came an increasingly nervous voice. "The readings are all over the place. It's like they're everywhere and nowhere at the same time." Elena smiled grimly. The poachers had come to capture apex predators, but they had never faced apex predators who were motivated by something beyond their own survival. They had never hunted creatures who were fighting to protect someone they loved. The first scream came from the perimeter of the poacher formation. Then another, not sounds of death, but of pure terror as armed hunters found themselves face to face with creatures that could move like shadows and strike like lightning. But true to Maya's whispered request, the umbral hunters weren't killing. They were simply removing threats. Weapons disappeared from trembling hands. Equipment failed mysteriously. Poachers found themselves hopelessly lost in a forest they had been mapping moments before. "They're playing with them," Elena realized. Not playing, Maya corrected. Teaching. They're showing the bad people that they can't win, so maybe they'll stop trying to hurt animals. Elena watched through the tree hollow's opening as the poacher operation fell apart in the face of an enemy they couldn't understand or counter. These criminals had come expecting to capture dangerous but predictable animals. Instead, they had encountered something unprecedented: predators who fought with strategy, compassion, and purpose. By dawn, the surviving poachers had fled, leaving behind their equipment and their certainty that they were the dominant species in the galaxy. The forest was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet, not the silence of fear, but the peace of safety. Maya emerged from their sanctuary first, stretching like she had just woken up from a pleasant nap rather than surviving a night. Surrounded by galactic predators and illegal hunters. The alpha hunter followed her out, its massive form seeming almost gentle in the morning light. "Thank you," Maya said to the three hunters, her voice carrying the simple sincerity that only children could manage. "You kept us really safe, and you didn't hurt the bad people too much." The alpha hunter's response was a complex harmony that seemed to combine gratitude, affection, and something that sounded almost like sadness. Maya reached up and hugged the creature's massive leg, her small arms barely spanning a fraction of its circumference. "I have to go back to the station now," she said, "but I'll come visit again, okay? And maybe next time I can bring some of my friends to meet you." Elena felt her heart breaking as she watched the goodbye between her daughter and the creatures that had risked everything to protect her. Maya's innocence had created something unprecedented, a bridge between species that had seemed forever separated by the predator-prey divide. The journey back to the research station was unlike anything Elena had ever experienced. The three umbral hunters escorted them through the forest, their presence transforming the environment from threatening to protective. Other wildlife, instead of fleeing in terror, seemed to sense that these apex predators were on a peaceful mission. Dr. Kethmer nearly fainted when Maya walked into the station flanked by three umbral hunters who looked like they would tear apart anyone who threatened her. The other researchers stood frozen in shock as the galaxy's most feared predators calmly waited while Maya hugged her mother goodbye. "Mom," Maya said as the hunters prepared to return to the forest, "can we study nice things about them instead of scary things? I think they'd like to be friends with more people, but everyone's always too scared to try." Elena looked at her daughter, this 8-year-old, human child who had just rewritten the fundamental laws of predator-prey relationships, and felt a pride so intense it was almost painful. "Yes, sweetheart," she said. "I think we can study very nice things about them." As the umbral hunters disappeared into the forest, the alpha paused at the edge of the clearing and looked back at Maya. The sound it made was unlike anything in the xenobiological databases, a complex harmony that spoke of friendship, gratitude, and the promise of future meetings. Maya waved enthusiastically. "Bye. I'll see you tomorrow." Elena realized that her daughter had just made a commitment that would change galactic civilization forever. But looking at Maya's bright, fearless smile, she couldn't bring herself to worry about the implications. Some changes, Elena thought, were worth the risk. The news of Maya's encounter with the umbral hunters spread through the galactic scientific community like wildfire. Within weeks, the remote research station on Kepler 442b had become the most famous xenobiological facility in the galaxy, with researchers from hundreds of species requesting permission to study the impossible bond between a human child and the universe's apex predators. Dr. Kethmer stood in the expanded observation deck, watching through high-resolution cameras as Maya played a game that could only be described as tag, with three creatures that could have ended galactic civilization if they chose to. The sight still made his sensory apparatus flutter with disbelief. The behavioral modifications are unprecedented. He reported to the assembled xenobiologists who had come to witness the phenomenon. The umbral hunters have adopted pack protection, behaviors typically reserved for their own offspring. They demonstrate play responses, social learning, and what can only be described as emotional attachment. Dr. Veltara of the Ethereal Collective leaned forward, her translucent form shimmering with curiosity. Dr. Kethmer, in your professional opinion, what enabled this interspecies bonding? What did the human child possess that allowed her to succeed where entire civilizations have failed? Dr. Kethmer's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he considered the question. Dr. Veltara, I believe the answer lies in what the child lacked rather than what she possessed. Explain. Fear, Dr. Kethmer said simply. Maya Vasquez approached the umbral hunters without the evolutionary fear responses that keep other species alive. She saw potential friends where we see death incarnate. Her fearlessness allowed her to communicate on an emotional level that transcended species barriers. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now the galaxy's leading expert on umbral hunter psychology, nodded. In agreement, Maya didn't see predators. She saw lonely animals who needed a friend. That perspective changed everything. On the display, Maya was showing the alpha hunter how to play a human game involving hiding and seeking. The massive predator was attempting to conceal its 3-meter frame behind a tree barely wide enough to hide one of its limbs, while Maya pretended not to see the obvious hiding spot. The cognitive dissonance is remarkable, observed Dr. Thrain of the Crystalline Hegemony. These creatures have spent millions of years perfecting predatory strategies, yet they are voluntarily engaging in play behavior that serves no survival function. Unless, Elena suggested, survival isn't just about staying alive. Maybe it's about having reasons to stay alive. The implications of Maya's breakthrough extended far beyond xenobiology. The Galactic Council had been forced to completely revise their policies regarding irredeemably dangerous species. If umbral hunters could form emotional bonds with other species, what other monsters might simply be misunderstood? The child has given us a new paradigm, announced Counselor Zexthuel during an emergency session of the Xenobiological Ethics Committee. We can no longer classify species based solely on their predatory capabilities. We must consider their capacity for emotional growth and interspecies bonding. Maya, blissfully unaware that she had revolutionized galactic civilization, was more interested in teaching her new friends about human culture. She had convinced Elena to bring art supplies to the forest and was now attempting to teach the alpha hunter how to finger paint. You have to be gentle, Maya instructed as the massive creature delicately dabbed one claw tip into bright blue paint. It's not about hunting or fighting. It's about making something pretty. Elena watched her daughter guide a creature that could destroy starships through the basics of artistic expression and marveled at the strange turns her life had taken. 6 months ago, she had been a respected xenobiologist studying dangerous fauna. Now she was documenting the most significant breakthrough in interspecies relations since the formation of the Galactic Council. Dr. Vasquez, called Dr. Kethmer. From the observation station, we're receiving a priority communication from the Galactic Ethics Committee. They're requesting permission to establish a permanent research facility to study Maya's methods. Elena felt a familiar protective instinct flare. Maya isn't a research subject. She's an 8-year-old child who made friends with some very special animals. But the implications can wait until Maya is old enough to understand them herself, Elena said firmly. Right now, she's just a little girl playing with her friends. That's what made this possible in the first place. Dr. Kethmer's sensory apparatus flickered with something that might have been amusement. Dr. Vasquez, I believe you have learned something from your offspring about the importance of perspective. Elena smiled as she watched Maya attempt to explain the concept of finger painting to creatures who possessed claws instead of fingers. The alpha hunter was producing something that looked like abstract expressionism, if abstract expressionism had been created by a being with no concept of human aesthetic principles. "Maya," Elena called, "what are you painting?" "It's our family," Maya announced proudly, gesturing to a canvas covered in blue swirls, purple splotches, and tiny stick figures. "That's you, and that's me, and those are my friends. We're all together in the forest, and we're happy." Elena studied the painting, a child's representation of something unprecedented in galactic history. A human family that included apex predators, a pack structure that transcended species boundaries, a friendship that had rewritten the laws of nature. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Elena said, and meant it. The alpha hunter made a sound that Elena's translation software still couldn't categorize, a complex harmony that seemed to convey agreement, contentment, and something that might have been love. Maya nodded seriously. "He says it needs more colors," she announced, "and maybe some flowers. Do you think we could plant some flowers here? It would make the forest prettier." Elena realized that her daughter was already planning their next project, landscaping an alien forest with the help of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. It should have been absurd. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "I think," Elena said carefully, "that might be a wonderful idea." As the sun set through the alien canopy, casting strange shadows across the forest floor, Elena watched her daughter put away her art supplies with the help of 3 creatures that had once terrorized the galaxy. Maya chatted to them about everything and nothing, the weather, her favorite books, the proper technique for skipping stones, while the hunters listened with the patience of devoted family members. Dr. Kethmer approached Elena as they prepared to return to the station. "Dr. Vasquez, I've been conducting long-term behavioral analysis of the hunter pack. The changes in their social structure are profound and lasting. Maya hasn't just made friends with them. She's changed them at a fundamental level." "How so?" "They're developing new communication patterns, more complex social behaviors. They're learning to see the world through the perspective of a being who doesn't think in terms of predator and prey." Dr. Kethmer paused. "They're becoming more human." Elena considered this. "Is that necessarily a good thing?" "I think," Dr. Kethmer said thoughtfully, "that they're becoming more themselves." Maya didn't change their nature, she revealed. Aspects of their nature that millions of years of survival instincts had hidden. Elena watched as Maya hugged each of the hunters goodbye, her small arms barely spanning a fraction of their massive limbs. The creatures bent down to receive her affection with a gentleness that seemed impossible given their size and predatory design. "See you tomorrow," Maya called as they headed back to the station. The alpha hunter's response was a complex harmony that had become as familiar to Elena as her daughter's laughter. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. The Kepler 442b research station had evolved from a covert observation post into the galaxy's premier interspecies communication center. Representatives from dozens of civilizations came to study Maya's methods, hoping to apply her breakthrough to their own relationships with dangerous native species. "The key principle," Elena explained to a gathering of xenobiologists from across the galaxy, "is approaching without preconceptions." Maya didn't see umbral hunters as monsters because she had no frame of reference for monsters. She saw potential. Friends because that's how children approach the world. Dr. Veltara of the Ethereal Collective leaned forward with interest. "Dr. Vasquez, are you suggesting that adult cognitive development actually inhibits interspecies bonding?" "I'm suggesting that sometimes the most sophisticated solution is the simplest one," Elena replied. Maya succeeded because she didn't try to analyze or categorize the hunters. She just tried to be their friend. In the forest beyond the station, Maya was conducting her daily language lessons with the hunter pack. What had started as play sessions had evolved into something resembling formal education, with Maya teaching the hunters human concepts while they taught her their own complex communication methods. Okay, so happy sounds like this, Maya demonstrated, making an exaggerated smile and laughing. The alpha hunter attempted to mimic the expression, which on a creature designed for killing looked more terrifying than joyful, but Maya clapped encouragingly anyway. Good. Now you try curious. Maya tilted her head and raised her eyebrows in an exaggerated expression of interest. The hunter's attempt was more successful, its massive head tilting at an angle that genuinely conveyed questioning interest. Dr. Kethmer observed the session through long-range cameras, making notes on behavioral patterns that continued to defy every principle of xenobiological science. The language acquisition is remarkable, he reported to Elena. The hunters are developing symbolic communication beyond their natural harmonic vocalizations. They're learning to express concepts that have no equivalent in their original behavioral patterns. Maya's learning too, Elena pointed out. Yesterday she told me that the alpha hunter's name translates roughly to one who guards the young. She's picking up nuances in their communication that our translation software can't detect. The implications of Maya's breakthrough had rippled across the galaxy. The umbral hunters were no longer classified as an irredeemably dangerous species. Instead, they had been granted protected status, with their homeworlds declared off-limits to hunting or exploitation. Maya had become their unofficial ambassador, though she still thought of herself as simply their friend. Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Kethmer, approached with a datapad displaying incoming communications. We're receiving requests from 17 different species to study Maya's methods with their own problematic fauna. The crystalline hegemony wants to know if her approach might work with the Void Stalkers. The Techno-Confederacy is asking about the Silicon Reapers. Elena felt a familiar protective instinct flare. Maya isn't a professional animal trainer. She's a 9-year-old girl who made friends with some very special creatures. I won't have her turned into a commodity, but the potential applications can be studied without exploiting my daughter, Elena said firmly. If other species want to learn from Maya's approach, they can observe and adapt, but Maya's childhood isn't for sale. Dr. Kethmer's sensory apparatus flickered with understanding. Of course, Dr. Vasquez. Perhaps we could develop training programs based on Maya's methods, without requiring her direct involvement. That would be better. But remember, the key to Maya's success wasn't technique. It was authenticity. She approached the hunters as potential friends because that's genuinely how she saw them. You can't fake that kind of innocence. In the forest, Maya's lesson was taking an unexpected turn. The alpha hunter had become agitated, its sensory organs focused on something beyond the clearing. The other two hunters immediately shifted into alert positions, their predatory instincts fully engaged. What's wrong? Maya asked, showing no fear despite being surrounded by suddenly tense apex predators. The alpha hunter's response was a series of rapid, complex harmonics that Maya had learned to interpret as warnings. Something was approaching that didn't belong. In their territory, Elena received the alert from the monitoring station just as the hunters were moving to protective positions around Maya. Dr. Vasquez, we're detecting an unauthorized ship entering the system. Configuration unknown, but they're broadcasting Collector Guild identification codes. Elena's blood ran cold. The Collector Guild was a semi-legal organization that specialized in acquiring unique specimens for wealthy private collectors. If they had learned about Maya's relationship with the Umbral Hunters, they would see an opportunity worth billions of credits. "Get Maya back to the station," Elena ordered, already moving toward the emergency protocols. "Activate all defensive systems and send a priority distress call to the Galactic Council." But as Elena watched the monitoring feeds, she realized that Maya wasn't coming back to the station. Instead, she was having what appeared to be an intense conversation with the Alpha Hunter, their communication a mix of human words and harmonic tones that seemed to convey complex strategic information. "Mom," Maya's voice came through the comm system. "The hunters say bad people are coming to take them away. But they have a plan. Can you trust them?" Elena felt her world narrow to a single point of absolute clarity. Her daughter was asking her to trust the galaxy's apex predators with both their lives. 6 months ago, the idea would have been insane. Now it felt like the only rational choice. "Yes, sweetheart," Elena replied. "I trust them." What followed was unlike anything in the history of galactic conflict. The Collector Guild had come expecting to capture valuable specimens and perhaps a human child who could serve as a handler. Instead, they found themselves facing a coordinated defense that combined human intelligence with predatory perfection. Maya, following the hunter's guidance, used her knowledge of the research station to help them understand the invaders' technology. The hunters, in turn, employed strategies that their species had perfected over millions of years, but modified by their new understanding of non-predatory problem solving. "They're not trying to kill the bad people," Maya explained to Elena over the comm as the battle raged around them. "They're trying to teach them that taking animals is wrong, but they're being really convincing about it." Elena watched through the station's external cameras as Collector Guild operatives found their equipment mysteriously malfunctioning, their vehicles disabled by precise strikes that left the crews unharmed but stranded, and their capture nets shredded by claws that could have just as easily shredded the people holding them. The message was clear. The Umbral Hunters were capable of devastating violence, but they were choosing restraint. The choice made their power more terrifying, not less. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Kefmer observed as he monitored the engagement. "The hunters are demonstrating strategic thinking that incorporates moral considerations. They're fighting to protect rather than to kill." The Collector Guild's retreat was swift and complete. Faced with enemies who were more sophisticated than their intelligence had suggested, and more merciful than they deserved, the professional specimen hunters decided that some prizes weren't worth the cost. As the dust settled, Maya emerged from the forest with her 3 protectors, chattering excitedly about the big game they had just played. To her, the life-or-death struggle had been another adventure with her friends. "We won," she announced to Elena, "and nobody got really hurt, just like we planned." Elena knelt down to hug her daughter, feeling the solid warmth of the child who had just helped coordinate a defense against galactic criminals. "Maya, do you understand what just happened? The bad people wanted to take my friends away and put them in cages," Maya said matter-of-factly. "So we showed them that my friends don't want to be in cages, and they're really good at not being in cages." Elena looked up at the Alpha Hunter, whose massive form loomed protectively over them both. "Thank you," she said simply, "the hunters." Response was a harmony that Elena's translation software had finally learned to categorize. Family. The transformation of galactic civilization proceeded with remarkable speed once Maya's methods were understood and adapted. The breakthrough wasn't just about communicating with dangerous species. It was about approaching all interspecies relations from a position of openness rather than fear. "The child has given us a new paradigm," announced Counselor Zexthil. "During a historic session of the Galactic Council, we have learned that the most dangerous predators in the galaxy can become our greatest protectors if we approach them with trust rather than terror." Dr. Elena Vasquez stood before the assembled representatives of dozens of species, her presentation displaying images of Maya playing with creatures that had once been classified as extinction-level threats. The key to my daughter's success wasn't special training or advanced technology. It was the willingness to see potential friends where others saw only enemies. Dr. Vasquez, asked Ambassador Krillinox of the Centauri Coalition, how do we replicate this approach with adult populations? How do we overcome millions of years of evolutionary fear responses? Elena smiled, thinking of her daughter's simple wisdom. We start by admitting that our fears might be wrong. We approach dangerous situations with the question, could this be a friend? Instead of assuming it's an enemy. The practical applications were already being implemented across the galaxy. Species that had been in conflict for centuries were using Maya's methods to find common ground. Planets that had been quarantined due to dangerous wildlife were being reopened as researchers learned to communicate with rather than simply avoid the native predators. The Void Stalkers of Proxima 7 have agreed to peaceful coexistence, reported Dr. Veltara during a scientific conference. Using modified versions of Maya's approach, we've established that their previous attacks were actually attempts at communication. They were trying to warn us about unstable areas of their planet. The Silicon Reapers had turned out to be gardeners, carefully maintaining the crystalline forests of their home world. The Quantum Wraiths were artists, creating beautiful energy patterns that galactic civilizations had mistaken for aggressive displays. One by one, the galaxy's monsters were revealing themselves to be misunderstood beings who simply communicated in ways that other species hadn't learned to interpret. Maya has taught us the most important lesson in xenobiological history, Dr. Kethmer announced during his acceptance speech for the Galactic Science Prize. The universe is not divided into predators and prey. It's divided into those who are willing to understand each other and those who aren't. Maya, now 10 years old and considerably more aware of her impact on galactic civilization, had mixed feelings about her newfound fame. She enjoyed the visitors who came to learn from her methods, but she was most comfortable when she was simply playing with her friends in the forest. "Mom," she said one evening as they watched the Umbral Hunters demonstrate their latest artistic creation, a complex arrangement of colored stones that somehow conveyed deep emotional meaning. "Do you think people will ever stop being scared of things they don't understand?" Elena considered the question, watching as the Alpha Hunter carefully adjusted a blue stone to better catch the setting sun's light. "I think they're learning, sweetheart. You've shown them that understanding is possible. But it takes time for grown-ups to change the way they think." "That's okay," Maya said philosophically. "My friends had to learn how to not be scary too. It just takes practice." Elena marveled at her daughter's wisdom. Maya had not only revolutionized interspecies relations, she had done so while maintaining the essential innocence that had made her breakthrough possible in the first place. The Alpha Hunter approached them, moving with a careful grace that Elena had learned indicated a desire to communicate something important. Its harmonic vocalizations had become as familiar to her as spoken language, and she could detect nuances of meaning that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. "He wants to show us something," Maya translated, already moving to follow. Her massive friend, something special that they made for us. They followed the hunter deeper into the forest to a clearing that Elena had never seen before. What they found there took her breath away. The Umbral Hunters had created a garden. Using their natural landscaping instincts, they had arranged the native plants into patterns of stunning beauty. Flowers bloomed in careful spirals. Trees had been encouraged to grow in formations that created natural amphitheaters. Streams had been guided into channels that created musical sounds as the water flowed over carefully placed stones. "It's for all the people who come to visit," Maya explained, her voice filled with pride for her friend's achievement. "They wanted to make something beautiful to show that they're not just good at being scary. They're good at making nice things. 2. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she walked through the garden that apex predators had created as a gift to the galaxy that had once feared them. It was more than beautiful. It was a testament to the power of understanding, the possibility of change, and the wisdom of a child who had seen friends where others saw only monsters. Dr. Vasquez. Dr. Kethmer's voice crackled through her. Communicator, we're receiving a priority message from the Galactic Council. They're formally requesting Maya's input on a new interspecies relations protocol. Elena looked at her daughter, who was showing the Alpha Hunter how to braid flower stems into decorative patterns. Maya was completely absorbed in the task, her small hands working alongside claws that could shear through starship hulls. Tell them Maya is busy, Elena replied. She's teaching her friends how to make friendship bracelets. Dr. Kethmer's pause suggested confusion. Dr. Vasquez, the Galactic Council is waiting. The Galactic Council can wait, Elena said firmly. Maya's most important work is happening right here, right now. Everything else is just paperwork. As the alien sun set through the garden that monsters had built for friends they never expected to have, Elena watched her daughter continue the work that had already changed the galaxy. Not through grand speeches or diplomatic protocols, but through the simple act of seeing the best in others and helping them see it in themselves. Maya looked up from her flower braiding lesson and smiled at her mother. Mom, do you think there are other scary animals out there who just need friends? Elena looked at her daughter, this 10-year-old human child who had rewritten the laws of interspecies relations through the radical act of kindness, and felt her heart swell with pride and possibility. I think, Elena said carefully, that if there are, you'll find them. And when you do, they'll be very lucky to have you as a friend. Maya nodded seriously, then turned back to the Alpha Hunter, who was struggling with the delicate task of braiding flower stems with claws designed for hunting. It's okay, she told the massive predator patiently. Friendship bracelets are hard, but that's what makes them special. Elena realized that her daughter had just articulated the most profound truth in the galaxy. The things worth having are worth working for, and the most beautiful relationships are often the most unlikely ones. As the stars emerged in the alien sky, 3 apex predators and 2 humans sat in a garden built from understanding, weaving flowers into symbols of friendship that transcended every boundary the galaxy had ever known. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but sometimes the greatest wonders were found in the simple act of a child teaching monsters how to be gentle, and learning in return that the most dangerous beings in the galaxy could become the most loyal friends. Maya Vasquez, 10 years old, and blissfully unaware that she had just saved galactic civilization through the radical act of kindness, continued her flower braiding lesson with the patience of someone who knew that the best things in life were worth teaching, worth learning, and worth protecting. And in a garden built by former monsters for their human friend, the galaxy found a new definition of strength, not the power to destroy, but the courage to create, to care, and to choose love over fear. Deadliest predators in the galaxy had indeed met their match in a human child, not because she had defeated them, but because she had done something far more powerful. She had believed in them, and sometimes believing in someone is all it takes to help them become who they were always meant to be. Years later, when xenobiologists studied the transformation of the umbral hunters from apex predators to galaxy-renowned protectors of the innocent, they would point to complex behavioral modifications, interspecies communication breakthroughs, and revolutionary approaches to predator-prey dynamics. But Elena Vasquez, watching her teenage daughter lead a group of young xenobiologists on their first meeting with creatures that had once terrorized the galaxy, knew the truth was much simpler. Maya had looked at the universe's most dangerous predators and seen not monsters, but friends who were lonely and misunderstood. She had offered them something no one else ever had: unconditional friendship, infinite patience, and the absolute certainty that they were capable of being better than their reputation suggested. The galaxy had been transformed not by advanced technology or sophisticated diplomacy, but by a child who understood that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't fear, it was love, and love, as Maya had proven beyond all doubt, could tame anything, even monsters, especially monsters.